All right, Ravens flock. Let's talk about this move because it's one of those that might not shake the entire league right away, but it screams Baltimore football. The Ravens went out and got Draymond Jones. And if you've been following what this guy's been doing lately, you know this pickup isn't just some filler trade. It's a calculated move for a team that's been desperate to add some bite back to its defensive front. Now, here's the thing. Draymond Jones has quietly been heating up over in Tennessee. 4.5 sacks in his last 4 games. Let me say that again. 4.5 sacks in just 4 weeks. That's not a coincidence. That's a dude who's found his rhythm. He's taken down quarterbacks from the Raiders, Patriots, Colts, and Chargers, all back-to-back. That kind of streak tells you he's locked in, confident, and probably feeling like he can wreck anyone lined up across from him. What makes this even more exciting for Baltimore fans is that Jones isn't your one-dimensional edge rusher. The man's got that rare inside-outside versatility that coaches dream about. He started his NFL career lining up on the interior, working the trenches, battling guards and centers, but over the years he's shifted outside to that edge role, and he's thrived there. That mix of interior power and edge speed, that's exactly what the Ravens' defense has been missing. Let's be honest, this year, when Baltimore has tried to rush with just 4 guys, it hasn't been pretty. They've struggled to consistently collapse the pocket without sending extra blitzers. That's been one of the biggest frustrations watching this defense. But now, with Draymond Jones joining Carl Lawson, who's reportedly ready to go, you suddenly have 2 guys who can win one-on-one matchups off the edge. That's a big deal. Those are the kinds of players who make offensive lines think twice before sliding protection. And here's the part one really like. This isn't some wild, all-in move that mortgages the future. The Ravens only gave up a conditional 5th-round pick that could become a 4th. That's nothing crazy for a player who brings both production and flexibility. It's a low-risk, high-reward kind of deal that gives Baltimore instant help without tying up long-term money. In fact, Jones is on an expiring 1-year deal worth $8.5 million, but the Ravens are only picking up his base salary, which is just under $1 million. So this is a cheap, smart rental that could pay big dividends down the stretch. Now, people might wonder if this takes Baltimore out of the running for other pass rushers, and honestly, yeah, it might. Guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson, or even Bradley Chubb might be off the table now. But the front office isn't thinking short-term panic moves. They're thinking fit, and Draymond Jones fits. He's big enough to play inside when needed, strong enough to hold the edge against the run, and explosive enough to create pressure from the outside. Standing at 6'3" and weighing about 280 pounds, he's built to move around that defensive line however the matchup demands. And the Ravens love that kind of versatility. It's been a theme in how they've built their roster for years. You lose a few defensive linemen to injuries? No problem. Bring in a guy who can fill multiple roles at once. Jones is that guy. You can plug him in different packages, let him rotate with other rushers, and he can free up snaps for younger players like Mike Green, keeping everyone fresher for those crucial 4th quarters in December and January. Let's not forget his career track record either. Jones isn't some flash-in-the-pan who just got hot. Over his first 6+ seasons, he's racked up 35 career sacks. He's never had a year with fewer than 3.5, and his career high sits at 6.5, which he's reached twice, in 2020 and 2022. That's consistency. He knows how to get after the quarterback, and he's done it in different systems, from Denver to Seattle to Tennessee. Remember when Seattle signed him to that big 3-year, $51.5 million contract? Yeah, he was one of the top free agents that offseason. Things didn't quite work out there, and he eventually landed in Tennessee on a 1-year prove-it deal. Well, he's proving it right now, and Baltimore might be the team that benefits the most. And you know what makes this move even sweeter? The context. Tennessee's season hasn't been competitive, and Jones was basically wasting his best football on a team going nowhere. Now he lands in Baltimore, a team that's fighting for the postseason, with a soft stretch of schedule ahead and a defense that's been looking for a jolt of energy. That's a huge change of scenery. Players feed off that. When you go from a team out of contention to a locker room with playoff vibes, it reignites that fire. Plus, the Ravens needed someone to step up and take charge on that defensive front. Let's be real, they've been struggling to find a consistent sack leader since early in the season. With Jones coming in, he instantly becomes the team's top guy in that category with 4.5. That says a lot about both his production and the need Baltimore had. They didn't just want another body. They needed someone who could make plays now. And while no one's expecting Jones to suddenly become a double-digit sack monster overnight, he doesn't have to be. He just needs to keep winning his matchups, freeing up the rest of the defense to do its thing. The Ravens' blitz packages hit differently when the four-man rush is actually getting home. Suddenly the coverage looks tighter, the linebackers can disguise more, and the whole defense becomes more unpredictable. What I like most is how this move reflects Baltimore's identity. They didn't panic after a rough start. They didn't throw away draft capital just to make headlines. They made a calculated move that fits both the system and the budget. A player who can help immediately, bring leadership, and still leave the team flexible for whatever comes next. Draymond Jones is the type of guy who brings energy. He plays with physicality, with that chip on his shoulder, and that's contagious. The Ravens' defense thrives on that kind of mindset: fast, aggressive, violent football. You can already imagine him in that black and purple jersey, coming off the edge, roaring after a big hit. It just feels right. He's not just a stopgap. He's a piece that could make this defense look and feel different. Baltimore's had injuries up front, rotations that haven't quite clicked, and a real need for someone who can hold his own on the line of scrimmage without needing extra help. Jones gives them that. He's durable, experienced, and most importantly, confident. So yeah, this might not be the blockbuster move of the season, but it's the kind of under-the-radar addition that championship teams make. The Ravens are setting the tone for the second half of their season: physicality, depth, and smart roster building. Draymond Jones is walking into an opportunity to make an immediate impact, and if he keeps up the pace he's been on, Baltimore just found their new difference maker in the trenches. Now, beyond Draymond Jones, there's another layer to what's been going on inside the Ravens front office this week, and it's all about how they're reshaping the roster on the fly. While the addition of Jones grabbed the spotlight, the trade of cornerback Jer Alexander to the Eagles opened up a whole new conversation about where this team is headed and how they're managing both the cap and their depth. Baltimore fans know this front office doesn't move lightly, so when they part ways with a player of Alexander's caliber, even after a rocky stint, it means they're thinking big picture. Let's rewind for a second. Jer Alexander came in with serious expectations, a two-time Pro Bowler who was supposed to be a major depth piece in that secondary. But between the injuries, limited snaps, and the coaching staff clearly losing confidence in him, the situation turned into a waiting game that wasn't doing anyone any good. He wasn't playing, and the Ravens needed flexibility, both in roster space and salary. So the trade made sense. Baltimore clears a bit of cap room, roughly $1 million in savings, and gains more freedom heading into the trade deadline. That might not sound like much, but for a team that's constantly working tight against the numbers, every dollar counts. What's even more telling is how the Ravens handled the move. They could have kept him stashed away as insurance in case injuries hit later in the season, but they decided to do right by the player. Alexander wanted to play, and Baltimore respected that. They've done this before, letting players find a new home rather than keeping them buried on the depth chart. It's one of those things that might not show up in stats, but it builds a reputation around the league. Free agents notice that. Guys talk, and when they see the Ravens treating players fairly, it makes Baltimore an even more attractive place to sign down the line. Now, financially, the move might seem minor on paper, but the ripple effect could be bigger. With Alexander and a few others off the books, the Ravens have around $15 million in cap space to maneuver with, the most they've had in years at this point of the season. That's a ton of flexibility heading into the stretch run, especially with a few holes still to patch. Defensive line, offensive line depth, maybe even another rotational corner. All are areas where Eric DeCosta could still pull a string or two. The trade also came with some draft capital, and that's another part of the story. Baltimore's sitting on roughly 10 picks for next year, including a couple of expected compensatory selections. That gives them the ability to move around the board or make another mid-season trade without draining the future. It's the kind of setup every general manager wants, a team that's competitive now but still loaded for what's next. But what does all this mean for the present? It means the Ravens are officially in build-while-competing mode. They've cleared enough room to make moves if needed, but they're not panicking. There's no sense of desperation in any of this. The Draymond Jones deal, the Jer Alexander trade, both are about control and positioning. Baltimore's identifying what works, trimming what doesn't, and building around players who fit their identity. And you can see how that identity has been tested this year. Injuries across the defensive line, inconsistency from young players, and a pass rush that hasn't found its groove. It's been frustrating. But with Jones stepping in, that entire rotation starts to shift. You can move guys around, mix up packages, and suddenly the defense has a different feel. Imagine a 3rd and long where you've got Jones, Carl Lawson, Justin Matabike, and maybe even Jadeveon Clowney all on the field together. That's a lot of power, speed, and chaos aimed straight at the quarterback. Meanwhile, the secondary, even after losing Alexander, still has enough firepower to hold its own. Brandon Stevens has stepped up in a big way this season, Marlon Humphrey's getting healthier, and some of the young corners are earning trust. Trading Alexander wasn't about giving up depth. It was about realizing where the real depth actually is. If a player isn't contributing on the field or on special teams, then that roster spot can be used better elsewhere. That's the kind of hard decision that good teams make. There's also something to be said about the timing of all this. The trade deadline always brings chaos, but Baltimore's not one of those teams that waits until the last second to scramble for moves. They plan, they analyze, they stay disciplined, and you can feel that even now, the front office isn't done. 1 or 2 more additions seem likely, maybe another interior defensive piece or someone who can bring stability to the offensive line. But the point is, they've created the room to make that happen. And let's talk for a second about how the locker room reacts to moves like these. Bringing in a guy like Draymond Jones sends a message. Management believes this team can compete. Players feel that. You bring in a proven pass rusher, you shuffle a few contracts to make room, and suddenly everyone's energy shifts. There's accountability, there's urgency, and there's excitement. You can't underestimate what that does inside a building. At the same time, parting ways with someone like Jer Alexander can also light a spark. It reminds players that nothing's guaranteed. You've got to perform. It's a balance between rewarding production and maintaining standards. That's classic John Harbaugh culture. Compete every day, stay ready, and when your number's called, deliver. Right now, Baltimore feels like a team that's been through the frustration phase and is entering the recalibration phase. They've identified what's not working, and instead of sitting on their hands, they're tweaking, moving, and rebuilding momentum. The schedule softens up, the roster gets a little deeper, and suddenly that wild card picture looks more realistic. There's a sense of quiet confidence building around this team. They're not blowing anyone out with flashy trades or giant names, but they're tightening the screws in all the right places. The defense looks stronger, the cap situation is cleaner, and there's space for another calculated addition if the right opportunity comes along. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. The NFL world is buzzing with what could be the most shocking defensive move of the season. ESPN sources are reporting that veteran defensive end Campbell is set to join the Baltimore Ravens. The news has sent shockwaves across social media, with fans and analysts alike scrambling to make sense of the potential implications for the Ravens' already formidable defense. Campbell, a proven force on the defensive line, brings a wealth of experience and an intimidating presence that could immediately elevate Baltimore's pass rush. Known for his versatility and relentless pursuit of quarterbacks, Campbell has consistently been a disruptive force, earning multiple Pro Bowl selections over his storied career. His arrival in Baltimore could signal a new era for the Ravens' front seven, complementing stars like Roquan Smith and Odafe Oweh, while adding depth and leadership to a squad already known for its defensive prowess. While nothing has been officially announced by the Ravens organization yet, the ESPN report has fueled speculation that Baltimore is aggressively positioning itself to contend for a deep playoff run. Insider chatter suggests that negotiations have been moving swiftly, with both sides eager to strike a deal before the free agent market becomes saturated. Fans have taken to Twitter in droves, expressing a mix of excitement and disbelief at the prospect of Campbell donning the Ravens' purple and black. Of course, questions remain. How will Campbell fit into defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald's schemes? Can he stay healthy and maintain the high level of play that has defined his career? And perhaps most tantalizing, what does this mean for the Ravens' long-term defensive strategy? One thing is certain, The mere rumor of Campbell in Baltimore has ignited conversation across locker rooms, sports bars, and online forums alike. For now, the NFL community waits with bated breath. If the deal is confirmed, Baltimore may have just pulled off a masterstroke, acquiring a veteran who can make an immediate impact while mentoring the next generation of Ravens defenders. One thing is clear, wherever Calais Campbell lands, the ripple effects will be felt throughout the league. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.